Mr. Chairman.
Oh, the Honourable David Parker.
Thank you. I was challenged by the last speaker, Dr. Parmjeet Palmer, to immediately take my feet and respond to the question of what we do with the with the contractor who's got more than one principal. The member was on the Select Committee and was there when PCO drafted an amendment at the request of the Select Committee, because that very point had been raised by submitters, which was a fair point raised by rural delivery people, saying, look, every individual contract that we have here would be insufficient, but you take them all together and we get much more than the minimum wage. Please don't include us. So there was a clause drafted which is in the supplementary order paper, because that amendment was blocked by Dr. Parmjeet Palmer and others at Select Committee, which says in clause 10 of the supplementary order paper, adding clause 6A2 to the Minimum Wage Act, that this requirement to pay the minimum wage to a contractor does not apply to a specified contractor, which is the terminology, who's providing service to more than one principal at the same time. I think that's pretty clear. Can I also, Sir, I'm not going to refer to anything else that speaker raised, because all of those points have already been addressed by either me or other members speaking in favour of the bill quite well. I will refer to the premature release that we had from the from Business New Zealand. They haven't really covered themselves with glory on this bill. I read their opinion piece in the newspaper, and in fairness to both to Business New Zealand, they obviously hadn't read the amendments that had been proposed but been blocked by the National Party in the way that we'd referred to earlier. And I know that because having seen their misinformed piece in the paper, which didn't refer to all of the protections that addressed most of their concerns, I met with them and gave them the form of the bill that had those amendments in them, and they plainly hadn't seen them previously. Further, I said that, look, if there are any other provisions here that you'd like to have incorporated that would make this more practical, I'm open for business, because I'm really just trying to cure this social ill without over-regulating things. They came up with 3 proposed suggestions, all of which are in the supplementary order paper. A transitional provision that says that this will never apply to contracts that are already in existence, even after the Act comes into effect, so it won't affect those arrangements that are already in place. Making it clear that where there's an agreement as to what's in a reasonable time, that agreement is at the time the contract is formed, not halfway through it. I thought that was pretty clear anyway, but I was willing to clarify that. And then lastly, to have a sort of an equity and good conscience discretion, that if the Labour inspector thought that having taken all those things into account, it still wouldn't be fair to ping the person who wasn't paying the minimum wage, well, they didn't have to ping them. So that's in there too. Notwithstanding that, this premature release from Business New Zealand shows that Peter Dunn, if they are right, is going to cast a vote against this at the committee stage, which is a shame. I'm taking that someone would have raised a point of order if the press release was right that this bill's already been voted down at committee stage, because I've been here for the last couple of hours and hopefully I wasn't asleep that long that I didn't notice that. Mr Speaker, the one other thing I haven't responded to was a question from Kevin Haig and the Greens, who asked why we'd gone for a list in Schedule 2. The original form of this bill, when it went under Darian Fenton at a previous iteration, actually didn't have a list. It applied to all contractual relationships. We actually put in a list to reduce compliance costs because we didn't want to catch brain surgeons who have plainly paid more than the minimum wage. So we went for a list approach. I think really, having gone through all of this, if I was going to do it again, I think this bill is good, but the better approach for a future Parliament is to actually have the approach that's taken in Canada, which is dependent contractor legislation, because that then does go further and addresses the things that Dr Parmjeet Palmer at least says that she's worried about, because you could also clean up at the same time things like holiday pay, unfair terms and contracts that prevent people that are in these dependent contract relationships even joining together and telling their boss that the terms aren't good enough. I'll wait till I hear any other new questions.
Chris Hipkins.
Thank you very much, Mr Chairman. I rise to